Go ahead. No. You think if I don't know how to do it, you think? Better move. Ah, lindo.
No.
There you go.
Now rock him. Pull him back. Pull him. Yeah. Yeah. Valerie. Yeah. I don't want to rock him too. Okay. Yeah. Ay, mi madre.
Mira la sirena. La sirena.
There you go.
Great. All right, Rico. Everybody wants to know what you paid for this property in 2020. So
I'll tell them at the end.
at the end, okay, go ahead.
What we'll do is we'll go through the home. I'll go through the home purchasing process of. And I'll tell you the story. Take a couple minutes from start to finish, as into how we decided how we ended up with this property. My wife and I decided some years ago that my wife's from El Salvador, so she's not a native. She's an American, but she's from El Salvador, and she's been living in the U.S. for 20, 25, 30 years. Well, 30-something years before I met her.
Okay.
So I always knew, even before I met her, I wanted to be an expat in some other country. At one point, I wanted to live in Thailand because I heard so many beautiful things about it. And basically, when I was doing the expat lifestyle I was looking at, I would always look at countries around the world where a lot of expats was living. And
Gotcha.
Thailand, Colombia, they all came up high on the list. And probably the number one driver was cost of living. So like in these countries, even in Mexico, you can get, Mexico I didn't want to because of the cartels and so forth. But some of the other, and even with Colombia, I was a little suspect because of the cartel. But a lot of these countries are safe in most areas.
Yes.
I'm not going to say everywhere because I think that's a misnomer. People assume even Thailand has some very dangerous areas where if you're not Thai, you ain't got no damn business being.
Right.
So they'll disappear and delete you anywhere.
Right.
So
in the United States.
And the United States. Oh, I mean, that goes without saying. That's probably the most dangerous.
Right.
That moving to another country,
right.
all of a sudden it goes from 100 to 0.
Gotcha.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
There's 100% risk in America. It can be 25% or 20% in the DR in Thailand, but that 20% still exists.
You have the same issues.
It still exists.
Right.
So with that being said, even before I met my wife, I knew I wanted to be an expat in another country. Mm-hmm. My wife did. She just didn't want to go back to her home country. So we made up our minds about 5 years ago, that we would start looking. So we first came to the DR in 2013 on a vacation, a year before we got married. She wanted to come, and I'd never heard of Punta Cana. I'd never even heard of it. So she's like, I want to go to Punta Cana. I said, okay, let's take a week-long vacation. Came and fell in love with it. But, of course, that entire week was all on the resort.
Gotcha, yeah.
So it is the DR, but it's the resort. So you're interacting with Dominican people, but you're not out in the country. So we also knew that we loved, if nothing else, to vacation here.
Yes.
So we literally started coming back here every year on a vacation.
Awesome.
But in addition, we were traveling other places. We went to Mexico, we went to Costa Rica, Panama, all of these places. And every time when we would vacation, I would like, hey, let's look around, let's look at some places, some real estate, and see what they got.
Gotcha.
So around 2019, we had gotten together, we pulled some money out of our 401k, and then we pulled some money out of the home that we got back in America, and we put together this big cash package.
Gotcha.
So at that point now, I'm constantly doing all of this research online, because looking at real estate, because now with the advent of the internet, you can actually look in Costa Rica, look in Mexico. They have these real estate companies all over. Now, of course, they're just showing you the best of the best. You're not really getting the nitty gritty, but you have an idea, and you can see places at the price point that you want to pay.
Yes.
So purchasing a home is just like purchasing a car. I don't need to look at $100,000 cars because I ain't got no $100,000 to spend on a car.
That's right.
So when I go to purchase a car, I might say, hey, 40K is my limit.
Yeah.
Show me what's 40K.
That's right.
I'm not interested in looking at something I can't afford. So with that being said, we had pulled our money together. We knew what our budget was. And then I reached out to this realty company and they put me in touch with this great realtor who I think is the best in the world. Her name is Shireen. Realtor company put us in touch with her. So she asked me what I was looking for, and I told her what my price point was. And I even told her a couple of places that I had found online that I'd never seen. So she was like, okay, Rico, that's great. I know about these places. She said, but let me put together a package with those places and some additional places that's with what you're looking for.
Gotcha.
And I was like, okay, cool, So she did. So in October 2020 was when my wife and I said, okay, we're going to go over there. And Shireen is aware of what we're looking for. She's got all these places. And we're going to do a real estate tour.
Yeah.
They met us and they took us around. Now, what they call a real estate advisor here is they don't work for any company. They just have all these listings, and you don't pay your realtor.
Gotcha.
They get paid by the seller.
Gotcha.
So if it doesn't sell, they don't get paid. You're not paying them any of this. But I guess she knew I was a serious buyer.
Yes. Yes.
So I went around, and me and my wife, we looked. She showed us, like, all the places she showed us were wonderful. Some people didn't want to budge, and I'll tell you this: in 2020, we were in the throes of COVID.
Right.
And I can tell you, at that point, no matter what, the real estate market was depressed all over the island. They weren't making any sales because nobody was.
Right.
In addition to that, when we came here in October 2020, we still had the curfew. So we were here going out to look at places, having to be back inside by, I think it might have been 5 p.m.
Wow. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I think it was.
Yeah, we still,
five.
because before that it started at one point, it was noon, then it went to 3,
Right, it went back
went to
and forth,
5.
yeah.
So, I mean, it's like we couldn't even be out at night or you get arrested.
Right,
right.
right.
Remember the trucks was going around
Right.
picking
Couldn't get any
picking
gas,
people up.
picking people up, yeah.
You had to do whatever you had to do. You had to have your ass indoors. The benefits of COVID was because they were so desperate, like things like Westside was offering their property at a 10% discount if you paid up front.
Gotcha.
100%.
Yeah.
And, for the price of the house, that's pretty steep.
Yeah.
Very steep.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of money to leave on the table not to take advantage of it. So, like I said, my builder here, the guy who lives right behind me, his name's Tony. He's a great guy. I love him to death. Obviously, he didn't want to do it. We went back and forth. And due to COVID, sales being stagnated, and my little bit of negotiation skill, I managed to pull it off, and I got it. He offered us the 10% because he is very particular about who he wants to sell and build for because of the atmosphere of the neighborhood.
Right.
And I noticed the difference in it as opposed to just we'll take anybody.
Right. That's
He
good.
will, but he just real, and all the neighbors kind of come off about the same.
I felt so comfortable here. Ever since I've been here, I've felt comfortable. Neighbors wave at you. They speak to you. The security guard, he waves at you. Nice, very nice.
The neighborhood is predominantly 90% foreigners.
Okay.
So Americans, Germans, Canadians, whatnot. There is a small mix of Dominicans that own property here.
Gotcha,
Obviously, the builder, because he's a millionaire.
Gotcha.
But and then anybody else would be they would call an upper class Dominican if they can afford these homes, or they're 1%, 10%, whatever the case may be.
So what is the percentage you have to pay for the different fees and things like that?
As far as the only thing when you and like I said, this is a new construction. So when you do new construction, you pay simply a 3% transfer of title. So from the builder, even the ones that's pre-built, you still pay that transfer title. It's 3% of the purchase price you pay to the government, and they transfer the title from the builder's name to your name.
Gotcha.
In addition, now, if you have what they call confidential, you get the first 15 years free with no property tax. But what's also even great, if your house is under $150,000 a year, if it's under $150,000 of value, you pay no property tax.
Oh man, that's good. That's good.
Mine's was slightly over. And while I do pay property tax, I only pay it on the value above 150.
Gotcha. And it's not, boy, like
So-
the guy we talked to yesterday. What's his name? Tony, right?
Troy.
Troy said he pays. He doesn't have to pay anything.
He doesn't pay anything. He's under 150.
That's right. It's under 150.
Yeah, because he even got a better deal than I did. Because again, again, I'll tell everybody is I am no real estate guru.
Right.
It was plain dumb luck, and I was able
And
to take
COVID,
advantage
and the
of
pandemic,
COVID.
the
Right.
pandemic,
It was
yeah.
the pandemic. These were 100-year deals.
Right.
So anybody expecting to get this same house, and then, for the record, this house is over 2,000 square feet. So it's 190 meters. So anybody can Google. The property is 330 meters, but the construction is 190 meters. You Google it's 2,027 square feet.
Gotcha.
My house in the States is 1,200 square feet.
Gotcha.
There you get a lot of space, a lot of land. We came here, we sat down, we met Tony, and we finally decided that we were going to do the deal with him. Basically, he was like, "Okay, pick out the lot that you want." And I picked this particular lot. It's the first one on the street when you come through the front gate, on this particular street, and nothing else was back here. And immediately, the build process from contract to delivery was 9 months.
That's good.
He
That's
said he
not
could
bad
do
at
it in
all.
less time, and but that was fine.
Did you all ever come and look at the progress and process?
Yeah, we
Okay.
came maybe once or twice.
Okay.
But other than that, most of the time I would ask my realtor to come by,
Check
and
it
she
out.
would come by and
Videos.
videos, and she would send
Gotcha.
me videos and
Cool.
pictures, because I think it's important to have a very good relationship with your realtor.
It is.
You want to make sure that here when you buy property in the DR, there's two things they tell you have to have. One is called a desalinde, and one is a clean title.
Gotcha.
And the desalinde, I think that's like a survey. So they have to survey the land, check it with the property records to know. Because, you have all kinds of property disputes here where property's owned by multiple families. And people who are selling property they don't even own.
Yeah.
Or then they didn't survey it correctly, and your property is halfway on somebody else's property.
Gotta be
and
real
things
careful
like
with that, yeah.
Gotta be very careful with that. I say do not cut corners at all on the lawyer.
Yeah.
At all. You don't pay your realtor, but do not cut corners on your lawyer. And it wasn't expensive. I think the total fee, it was just a flat fee. It might have been, I think it was like $1,700.
Yeah, that ain't
It's
bad.
what I paid my
Right.
lawyer, and that's for
That
everything.
that covers everything.
Everything. She makes sure that everything is cleared, no back taxes, the title's clear. When you get it and they deliver you your mortgage with your name. At one point, the mortgage first came in and had my wife's nationality is Spain. She said, "Nope, give it here. I'm gonna send it back, make them correct it. The nationality of your wife is U.S., the same as you."
Gotcha.
So we are spotless on that.
Gotcha.
So they did a really great job.
So what is your fee for the monthly fee for? What is
Okay, I'll
it
tell you
called?
in a sec real
Okay,
quick. But I
sorry.
just want no. That's a good question. But what I want to say is, so once we picked the lot, we settled, and then, at whatever point at his leisure, probably within the next 14, 20 days, I think the first couple of weeks they were clearing the lot because you see it's just wow. They got to cut it and clear it, all that, level it, and all
Right.
that. He started it, and every step of the way, he would email us and he'd be like, "Okay, this is the tiles for the floor inside. Pick which one you want." He might send me like a dozen. Okay, this is for the pool. Pick which one you want. So a custom build, you're going through the processes. Okay, this is the color of paint. Pick which one you want. Okay, these are the sinks we're gonna put in the bathroom. Pick which one you want. You don't have a ton of choices within the standard bill, but you can also do upgrades if you want. But then you got to pay extra.
Gotcha.
But I didn't want to do that. So because I was like, hey, that's a good choice. Now, if we want to upgrade, we can upgrade later.
right.
So that was all through the process, every step of the way,
Gotcha.
until the house was completely done and built. So when the house was finished, the only thing I would tell people is, unlike the U.S., homes here, when you buy the homes, it does not come with appliances.
Gotcha.
So the house is delivered, but you don't have any appliances. You have no stove, no refrigerator, no
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
air conditioning units. But what I did do was,
Jason, es uno más cerveza. Yeah, gracias.
yeah, dos.
Dos.
So we'll continue on. So,
Thank you, Jason.
That's the process. Now you got to edit it.
Right.
That's the process, and so that's the thing to say. So that's the one thing I did too. Right towards the end, I asked them, about the price of purchasing
Gracias.
the air conditioning, because I knew right away out the gate, I was like, we got to have air conditioning. So I purchased all the air conditioners, and for him, to buy them and install them. And he did. So when we got the house, I was like, oh, day one, I need, it'd be 100 degrees here. I was
Right.
like, we got to have air.
Yeah.
So I got that done. And then while we were here, we went out to Electroyama, and because I didn't want to import appliances, because I wasn't sure if they were going to be compatible with the country.
Right.
So
That
I
was
bought
smart.
a stove here, a refrigerator, and the washer dryer.
Gotcha.
And the Evactor fan over top. Pretty much everything else we shipped and we imported because I was like, it'll fit, it'll work fine. So that was the process of having the house built. It was built, it was delivered. The builder did everything he had to do. My lawyer did everything that she had to do. My realtor had already been paid.
Did you have to bring anything besides your passport? You had to show anything?
That's it.
Well, you paid cash for yours,
Yes.
so
Yes.
you didn't have to. You just needed
Right.
your passport. That was it.
Yes, and the thing is, we pulled the money together because I had already knew beforehand that while they will allow foreigners to finance here, it's not an easy process.
Gotcha.
You know, they kind of make you go through hoops. You ain't financing with no 10% down. Typically, I think they'll only finance 50%.
Gotcha.
So if the house is 300,000, you got to have 150,000.
Yeah.
Or if it's a 200,000, you got to have 100,000.
Right.
You know, whatever the case is. And even at the 50% that they'll finance, it's usually a good rate might be 15%. Some people I've heard talk about getting 6%, but I've heard upwards 15, 20% interest.
Gotcha.
You know, as opposed to back in the U.S., we pay typically 3. I think maybe now it's up to 5 or 6. And people stop buying houses if we get over 7 or 8 because it's just like the interest rate is considered too high. So that wasn't a concern. So I was a cash buyer, and we got that done. It was easy as far as the cash buyer. We, while we were here and we did the signing of the contract, we brought like $5,000 as earnest money.
Gotcha.
Paid that, and then within 30 days, paid the balance. And I just did that through a wire transfer from my bank to his. When we got that done, that process was finished. We got the house. We got the appliances and stuff installed. We got the air conditioners installed. So now it was pretty much turnkey ready, and all we had to do was go back and start preparing for the shipping of our household, contents, which that was a process because at the time, again, still in COVID.
Yeah.
And COVID not only depressed the real estate market, we had all those shipping delays. Remember, all over the world.
Right.
But believe it or not, that affected you shipping furniture as well.
Right.
So my furniture shipment, which should have took 30 days, took like 5 months.
Gotcha.
From the time they came and picked it up at my house to the time that they delivered it, because it sat in Panama for about 3 months in the container.
Gotcha.
So, but it just was what it was. Didn't cost me anymore. It just sat there, and I just had to wait for it to get here to come and open the house. The movers came to my house in Maryland, packed it up, and they delivered and reinstalled and put everything back together here.
Gotcha.
So that was that.
Right.
So me and my wife both have been pleased to no end for the entire process. We ended up having a really great builder, a really great realtor, a really great lawyer, and the process has been nearly flawless. But I'll tell everybody, I'm no real estate guru. It was blind, dumb luck.
Yeah.
And I did have sense enough to take advantage of it in the moment.
Really smart.
And now to get to the creme de la creme.
Okay.
Everybody wanna know what it costs.
Everybody, let's know.
If you see the previous video, which is, we call that the showing.
Right, the showing.
So you know what I got.
Yeah.
Now you can see what I paid for it.
All right.
And I can be clear to you now. You won't sniff that price now.
Right.
Because prices went skyrocketing. There were 2 things that lucked out for me.
Mm-hmm.
October 2020, we were in the depths of the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And believe it or not, 3 months later, the prices of all the materials went up like 30-35%. So the cost of concrete, rebar, everything.
So the timing was perfect.
It was perfect. But because I had a contract and paid in full,
Right.
none of that cost could be passed on to me.
Gotcha.
So the builder just had to eat it. I didn't force him to. He already got
signed
my
it.
money.
Yeah,
It's
he
in the
signed
bank.
it. Right. So with everybody
All that
wants to
being said-
know how much you paid for this beautiful 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath.
Okay. So the price of the house originally listed at that time $180.
Mm-hmm.
But remember, I got 10% off.
Mm-hmm.
10% of 180 is $18K.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm not paying 180.
Mm-hmm.
I paid 162
Awesome.
because that 18K came off.
Mm-hmm.
We negotiated. Took a couple of days.
Right.
I won.
Yes.
In addition, I wanted a pool added on.
Mm-hmm.
So that increased it 10K.
Mm-hmm.
So the total price I paid was 172.
Wow. That's good.
Today,
Yes. Today you wouldn't even come close to 170.
300.
300,000.
Yes.
So you already $160,000.
130.
130.
120. 128.
In
in about a year and a half.
That's amazing. Special shout out to Rico. Hey, y'all, I'm going to have a part 3 tomorrow because y'all know Rico can talk. So he gave all kinds of extra snippets of things you need to do and things you need not to do and just the whole 9 yards. So I'll have a part 3 tomorrow. And remember, the live is coming up. If you missed the live, make sure you go back. I think it's going to say something like Rico's house live. Ask questions about Rico's house in Punta Cana. So check all that out. A part 3 is coming up, and don't forget about the live. So you got a 4-part series all about Rico in Punta Cana. God bless, make peace, be still. Thank you so much for being a part of the channel, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell people about the channel. Peace.